there, beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to my Ascension video update. So we are in between the eclipse season, which means that there's a lot of intensity happening right now, and I wish to give more focus to that specifically, as in terms of what you can experience as we're moving through this transition period. You can find more information about the April energy update on my SoundCloud profile, the energy podcast for the month of April, where I share more about the specific encoding that April has for us. And there's so much we can do because the energy is getting more rooted, it's getting more active, it's getting more physical. We're almost like sealing our experience here at this juncture point. We had a huge epiphany probably during this eclipse season, which means that something is eclipsing out of our lives, which means that it's dissolving. What might be very apparent right now is this inner feelings that are they're almost like very new. You might be feeling sensations that you've never felt before. You might feel guided to experience life in a new manner, but yet you don't know how. You don't yet have all the answers because the eclipse season, it's all about things not being very stabilized yet. We have eclipses 2 times in a year, which means that these are most intense times, and it's times when we process the most. And it's beautiful because just this weekend we celebrated the Elven New Year, and I was really excited because the energy really felt that way. And there was a lot of culmination. But what I specifically want to focus on in this update is this huge releasing of something that we might be holding on to before we might enter this new phase. And I want to again share a bit of my own experience, as I always do. Please take everything as in regards to these experiences not being stories, they're just parables, they're comparisons to almost like analogies to what we're experiencing internally and then how the energy moves and manifests externally. So what's really apparent right now is that energy of coming into this complete wholeness of ourselves. And a lot of times what may transpire that we reach that level of physical embodiment as well, not just know it intellectually, is that we will have physical experiences that will kind of trigger that to unfold for us. Because in this path as Ascension pioneers, we're not to be attached to any single thing, not even to external realities such as our companions, our friends, our animals, you know, everything that we think as our possession. What Spirit is really showing me is that how beautiful it is to live in a fleeting nature of life. So let's say maybe you had this idea of yourself and how you are belonging to this realm of existence. What is your path? What's your purpose? And yet now the feelings may come that will show you something in a more expanded version of yourself, which in the beginning might feel a bit strange. And we can't always place these feelings as they're still shifting. You know, this is almost like the phoenix archetype. The phoenix knows when it's time to rise again. The phase is a natural cycle, the rhythm of the pulsating creation that invites us to participate. And we are being invited to participate in life more. So I will share more about this trust with the law of detachment and deepening our sense and mastering our divine trust. I also made a mastery course. Please follow the link below in the description box to see how you can participate in the classroom. These are deepened teachings about how to really move deeper into our self-mastery. So if you want to have this experience on a more profound level of your life, not just to intellectually know about it and have the awareness, because you know we travel these pulsating cycles of embodiment through awakening and then activation, and then we have that intensity that pushes forth that new integration in the physical body, which brings the sealing of our experience, and then therefore we have embodiment. So this is how things unfold for us. So to deepen our sense of trust, that core divine trust that no matter what comes and goes out of our lives, it's all life. And this means that we need to trust not just spirit, but life itself, because spirit is life. Holy Spirit is all life in creation. And when we see no more separation between the two, it's not even the two. But let's say it like this, and then let's see that in fact there's no separation, that when we trust spirit vertically, we also trust life horizontally. And divine trust also has to deal with us moving into a unified polarity, into a singularity field that's now also taking place, instead of the dualistic perception that sometimes you're more in your masculine expression, sometimes you're more in your feminine expression, and yet the sense of this new ascendant self as the reality where you coexist. You are an androgynous essence, a beautiful being that has divine feminine and male parts of divinity always joined together as one. So all the decisions, all the choices you're making come from that unified space. And I share more about this in my mastery class. So if you're guided, you're invited to participate in the classroom. But what I want to share here is a few examples how we don't always notice these things when it comes to our physical lives, because I still see we can be very intellectual, but when the experience will happen, will we recognize it as such? That is our mastery. And I have to share with you a little personal story here, as remember I shared with you about us receiving a new divine companion. And it was an animal, and you know, it was, I can't really explain it with words, because when we had that experience, for both of us, it almost felt like it's almost like existing somewhere here. We weren't fully grounded in it. It almost felt like a fleeting experience, and so we weren't attached to it from the beginning. So what happened is that as quickly as he came into our life, just as quickly he exited, you know, the framework of where we are now in our reality. So what took place is that we actually gave our dog companion to our family, to the family of my cousin, and they have 3 children and a house and a garden and everything. So it was really like a wow. And you know, the dog was meant for my mother, but then she felt something needs to change. It just didn't feel like it's for her. So what we felt was that we have so much choices, and yet we don't always see them because we like to be attached to them, and people like to see just one thing, and they don't see it the whole perspective of sometimes how things are intertwined. So let's say you think a certain experience, and from the beginning you think it's meant to be for that reason, and Spirit says no, it's actually for that reason. Be open, be receptive. And when you are attuned to that level of mastery, then you can go about life, you can go through anything. You can just be as a conscious participant with life, but also conscious objective observer at the same time. So you do participate in life. That means you don't close yourself up to not experiencing new things because you've had maybe previously bad experiences, how you value them in such a way. Because in truth, nothing is good and bad. It's just experience, and it's neutral. And with that unified polarity and singularity, we're moving to that perspective. That's the only way how we really live it. Not just know that it's like that, but when something happens in our lives, we feel that's not how it's supposed to be, and we're clinging on and we're attached. So as much as this was a huge, even financially, investment for me, for myself, it just went, and I felt myself like a completely detached observer of everything that's happening. At the same time, you're consciously creating the new outcome, and you see that you're the one navigating it, and yet you don't feel any detachment to anything. And I felt this deeper integration of compassion and seeing all levels, how they're intertwined, how they're intrinsically connected, and sometimes how we don't see everything as it is, but it will reveal itself to us. It will show itself to us when we master that law of detachment. So that was a crucial component of our activation during this time for a lot of people, because the eclipses are always about that. You know, what are you still attached to? It's going to be eclipsed out of your life if you only allow it. But I've asked this question on my page recently, and it's a lot of times we're always thinking about what we're saying goodbye to, what we're saying farewell to, what is leaving us, instead of saying, but what am I welcoming in through that experience? And we wouldn't have the wisdom we have if that experience wasn't there. So sometimes things happen. Well, they don't just happen, you know what I mean. But you consciously participate with life, and they do happen. And you might not always have the greater understanding, and yet be open, because spirit, life, it will invite you to play with an open mind, with an open heart, because things will unfold always for the greater good. When we are attached, this cannot happen. So a lot of times, let's say we want to be in a greater flow of abundance, but because you're not creating it internally, because you're still fixated on a certain outcome or a certain perception that you have. And I talk to people, and many of them still have this almost like value, the internal value about money is that it's bad, but it's actually neutral. What you will create with it is up to you, and it comes through your soul awareness. But money itself, it's just energy, and how you use it and how you see it. Whether you see it as an investment in the self, in the things that you would like to invest in for yourself, and then that you can overflow and share with others, then that's one perspective. But you can also see it as bad, and then you want to be abundant, and yet you keep recreating that state when you don't yet fully feel it. So the perspective will change the feeling side of life. And I'm not saying that our human nature is to be denied here, because we all have feelings. And yet even those feelings are a fleeting nature. So I had my moment a day after this took place this weekend. I just sat on a bench and I allowed myself to feel some tears of releasing, but it wasn't even releasing about, I was never the kind of person that would be attached to people, to animals, to anything like that. I see everything as always perfectly having its own story in creation. Everything has its journey. I'm not the one to navigate its journey. I can only navigate my own. But still, there was the kind of releasing of just something that was and it isn't anymore. So we also have to be compassionate in a way that we allow things to be experienced, becoming this experience, not attached to it, but just feeling it. It's really important. And once you will master that, you will always reap greater rewards, because you have stayed open, you didn't close up, and you didn't really see life as moving against you. It's always moving towards you. But what's also taking place here is that willingness to not just be attached to things bringing you messages and energy and advancement, because this was a huge advancement, for example, in our lives. It moved us into new directions. It showed us new things. It's always like this. But sometimes we just think of it, physicality of the thing, of the experience itself being that thing for us. But it's not always the case. Just recently I saw that Moji made a video and he shared about satsangs, and then how people want to have hugs and physically touch him, and you know, like, oh, you're the master, give me some of your beautiful energy. And he said it's not important, you're getting away from that which truly is, which unfolds within you. And the same goes for when we have beautiful companions or friends, and even animals. When we see them as our source, the source within us will not have the capacity to blossom in its greater divine potential that it was primarily meant to. We were all meant to experience that internally first and then share it externally. And the moment we forget this and we engage in things rather as physical participants, then sometimes this is not the same. It's not the same experience of that inner wholeness. But what was also important here is, because I've noticed that he also shared something else that I always share in my videos, was the fact that after everything that you activate, that you consciously, either by participating in satsangs, watching videos, reading books, anything of the nature that triggers your soul for more opening, for more expansion, then afterwards you always need that time to integrate, to be with the self, to just sit with the self. Because I also notice a lot of individuals, they go on Facebook, they just read posts from others, tags from others, videos from others all the time. It's being too much informed. It's overly informed by all that's happening, by everything that everybody's sharing. The information age has its advantages, but it can also have its disadvantages when you're not tuning into it with a balanced manner. So with an open heart, and yet at the same time to be open to that inner receptive state as well, not always just attached to what will come next, what will the other share again. You know, sometimes we can feel this great space of void when we don't yet know what's the next thing, what's the next project, you know, what's my next expansion, what's my next, we're always pursuing the next thing and then the next thing, because we are so afraid to feel that void. Divine love isn't the void. The void itself is that space where things grow from true divine nature, not from that constant obsession to always expand and try something new and touch and feel. And you know, we are opening this blissful state when we are sensual, when we participate in life more. But it doesn't come through a state when we are over engaging in it, that itself is our source of experience. The inner feeling side of life is the root of all. And then the pleasure that we feel through our sensual experience when we relate to our external world is secondary in nature. Well, they're both one, they're unified. But when we're still coming from a place of attachment and addiction to that external, to the next thing, to the next chapter, without first really integrating what was on this level, then we can be carried on to something different, something not just primarily self-based and inwardly centered. That's one thing. But what I also want to share is that during these course of events, we also watched a movie called Wild, and it was about this woman. It was a real story. It was recorded after true events. She hiked all alone. I don't know how many miles. It was a lot. Even I wouldn't do it, and I'm quite a mountain goat. And it was the Pacific Crest Trail. But the specific scene that really imprinted upon my heart was towards the end, when she saw her final step, her final destination, and there was a bridge. And she had a very interesting and tumultuous life in many ways. And she was trying to hike it out, to get it out of her system, to become the person that her mother was always meant her to be and hoped that she would be. And she wanted to reach that state again. And you know that when we're seeking that state, like it's somewhere, like it's going to come through us reaching a certain goal, it can always be elusive. There could always be the next step. Okay, you come there. Where's the next thing that leads me towards there? Because if you haven't yet found it within, then it's always going to be the pursuit of the next thing. So when she came to the bridge, she said, well, wow, you know, what if even those mistakes that I did and all the things that I, or experimented with drugs and everything, what if even those things were not mistakes, because they all led me to be here where I'm standing right now in this moment. I'm just this now moment when all just is. And then it was shared that very close to this experience, it's where she met her husband and then her first daughter. And it's something that we forget sometimes. It's how all the events and experiences of what we pursue are fleeting. They're of a fleeting nature. And if we can't sit with the self, if we don't know how to just be, how to just trust every chapter and that there's no mistakes, even when you think, why did this happen? But then that happened as a following result. Because it doesn't make sense. It's in contradiction to the first thing that I perceived. And I thought it's going to be something else, so therefore it's contradiction. But source and life and creation, they're never in contradiction. It's just the perspective that we have developed in our inner dualistic nature that is in contradiction. In truth, nothing is. The events are always in alignment. Only your perception makes them in contradiction. It creates this square tendency. And we actually had this seven squares happening, the grand cardinal squares, that they actually were showing us this, where there's still tension, where there's still perception of this square nature, of this opposition even in a way. And that we can break free from that, that we see all the experiences as that they actually support our ascension. You know how many times people think that the beautiful things, they perceive them as beautiful, that they assist their ascension journey, and then something happens and they start to doubt. I've seen many times people who, especially they do spiritual practices and they have clients and everything works out well, and then something happens one day and they say, wait a minute, but where's my money now? Where's my support now? And all of a sudden they move into separation because on this level they're not supported. So why should they do anything about it? Because obviously there's no support. And they start to doubt and they start to question. And this is why I created these self-mastery courses, that we would feel and be in that state always at all times. Not just when things seem right on the surface or when you find them easy and not challenging at all. So what's really taking place here is that we need to understand that once you step on the journey of ascension and you take that leap of faith and you believe in your ascension with all your heart, with all your soul, in your spirit, you know that every single thing is here to support your ascension process, not to contradict it, not to bring you chaos. Even if it's chaos, it's still supporting your ascension. Maybe you need it at that time. Maybe you need to be shaken up sometimes. Maybe you need to lose those sense of self-restriction or doubting yourself, or feeling too comfortable sometimes, too safe. And then knowing that every single thing supports your ascension comes from that unified field. And even though sometimes you might feel, but I gave so much, I'm not yet receiving that fully return in the way I would want to, even that voice inside of you still believes in separation. But don't negate that thing, because too often people are proud and they don't want to admit this to themselves. And instead of just admitting the feeling, they're proud and they don't want assistance and they think, I'm fine, Pride is something that just recently I wrote, I was reading Saint Germain, how he shared on this note. He said pride is really It's really not an energy to help you. A lot of times people say, I'm going to do this myself, and they isolate and they move into a restriction when the restriction is not even necessary, because there's a great divine logic and structure and hierarchy and a greater sense of divine ordering of things. And it's that the highest helps that which is still in the lower. And it's just all moving up in the ladder of love. And many times when we are proud, we say, I don't need help, I don't need this, I don't need that, I'm going to do it myself. So you actually negate yourself from the stream of life that is in all things, in all people, in all situations, in all experiences. And what we do is, through that pride, we kind of isolate ourselves very often. So this time now, it's very important for the caterpillars to become butterflies, for the Ascension pioneers to start a new journey, to move more outwardly with their strengths, with what they're experiencing. You know, you see me, I talk about all the experiences, not just what you might perceive as wow. That shines on the outside, it's so beautiful, because I believe everything is a part of life. You know, even things like stalkers or people who write you hateful comments or things coming in and out of your life, and there's no guilt, there's no judgment in anything, there's no shame. Why would I be ashamed to talk about myself if I believe in my path truly, with whole heart, devotedly, with compassion for every single experience, and then opening that space, keeping that space open for all of you to feel the same. And we will have then the second eclipse will be in Libra, which is on the 4th, which is amazing, 4th of April. So 4/4 energy is going to be activated. It's going to be a 12 universal month, which means great culmination. On a more physical sense, 9 is usually the number of endings, but 12 is more like the culmination of a universal cycle, because 12, in the universe, we have the creation principle of 12. So we're moving in more that universal completion of your universal lessons, not just what you thought was your earthly life theme and so on and so forth. So this is going to be taking place as well. And that Libra energy is also that relationship energy. So how you relate to the world, how you relate to other people, other beings, and really through compassion. But there will be lots of energy with that drive, with moving forward and maybe starting something new you've never tried before, and keeping an open mind and getting yourself busy with the things that you love and firing up those divine creative pursuits, because Aries energy is very, very dominant at this month. And April is always a month of major shifts, because even the weather, here we always say, wow, the April weather, because it can be sunny one moment and the next moment it can rain, and so on and so forth. So we have to be very flexible this month. The key word I've received in my energy update is this, you know, just being open to exploring new things, trying out new things, because that will bring us success in further notes. So this is it for today. If I have anything else to add, I will put it into the next video. But at the end, I also want to answer a particular question that I received recently from someone asking me, how is it when you can be so overflowing in your mode and your source, but then you don't always want to move outward with energy and helping or sharing with others? And it's very interesting, because every single time when the person says that they can find balance between themselves and being in their own source, and then how to share with others that it's in balance, is because there's still something in us that works with separation, that's still feeling that as separate, that where what we do with us internally and our own connection, and then how we give to others, we see that as a separate process, and yet it's not. So the moment we will shift that perspective and see that being ourselves is already how we share and how we're guided to share, there's not a necessity or a need to it. When that will be unified, there will be no more such feeling that it's out of balance, because we have to move from those roles, like I'm a martyr, I'm the one who sacrifices myself to serve others. This is servant consciousness. It's not serving all life in creation through joy, through beauty, through simplicity of your true organic divine design. So when we move into that, we will have no problem by being in our source and also sharing as much as we're guided to share. There's only imbalance when that comes at a place of lack and need or guilt if you're not doing it. So then we need to create these boundaries that sometimes are not healthy boundaries, but they're more restrictions. So when we overflow, we can constantly overflow. That's unified field when it's the thing that we feel more the separate consciousness, like, okay, now I'm going to move in my own zone and I'm going to create the shield and nobody will reach me, and when I'm ready I'm going to come out, that again comes from separation. And it's okay, even that is a part of the experience that we're mastering, that helps us towards this mastery. So okay, this is what I will wrap up with today. So much love, wisdom, and power as always. Take care and have a beautiful month of April as well. See you next time. Bye-bye.